What has the reaction been like to both of these developments on the ground?
Well, this had a seismic effect on the G-20 summit here in Rio de Janeiro, and we should go back and look at what precipitated all of this. The United States in particular was very upset at the prospect of North Korean troops being used by Russia to fight in that conflict against Ukraine. That's what led the U.S. to make that authorization, one that they didn't go out and confirm on the record. Of course, we've seen what's happened since, and that statement from Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, incredibly strong, and I'll point out in English, it was meant to be a very strong warning to Western leaders who are gathered here about that change to the nuclear doctrine that you were just alluding to, Kailey. So you look at sort of how things were before. It was if a nuclear power attacked Russia, that would be grounds for them to retaliate in kind. What they've stipulated in this new document is if a non-nuclear nation were to attack Russia in concert with a nuclear power, that would give them the ability to react in kind. And that's an extraordinary statement, at least rhetorically, and one that really affected people here on the ground and was the subject of conversation on the sidelines of the summit today. There was a big meeting this morning between Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, and President Xi Jinping, in which this was discussed. President Xi Jinping didn't talk about the latest developments in great detail, but acknowledged the conflict in Ukraine during the course of his remarks before that conversation. Olaf Scholz, I'll remind everyone, just had a conversation with President Putin of Russia, and a lot of people here were eager to hear how that conversation went by telephone. Others were upset with him for having it in the first place, wondering why it happened when it did, especially in the context of what's happened over these last few hours. So we've heard from some global leaders here on the heels of this escalation of what's happened in that war. Others have remained silent, and I'll say chiefly President Biden said nothing. He did not have a press conference while he was here and didn't deliver a statement to the press while he was here either. What we have to look to is this communique that was developed by the members of the G20 who were here, that formal declaration from the 20 member states who gathered here in Brazil. Ukraine is mentioned or alluded to, but that conflict is not mentioned in real specific, and that is something that the president of Brazil really wanted to emphasize. He wanted to see there be a communique. There have been summits like this in the past where there hasn't been one. He was adamant that there would be one. So when there was the opening for debate about words and language related to the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, he really scuttled that, moved along. We have that document, but it tells us precious little about where things go from here. And that indeed is the open question. With Donald Trump returning to the Oval Office in just a couple of months, how things will change here as a result, and folks here confused and worried about the prospects of what that might be.